welcome to Box Sports. We're going to look tonight at Star Trek Adventures, the Command Division Supplemental Rule Book. This came out around the same time as the Beta Quadrant Source Book, and it has a very different feel and very different flavour, and we're going to go through it and then we're going to do a little review on it. So basically, I've lived with the electronic version of this for a few weeks, and this is now has arrived, which is the paper copy. As you would expect, it's really good quality. Lovely smell, which you can't pick up on this, but it's that new book smell, which is lovely. The basic structure of the book itself, there's an introduction which tells you a little bit about leading by example. There's a bit about Command Division and how it's structured and the way that it works. Then there's a bit about building characters for Command Division. Then we get Federation vessels, looking at some options in starships and small craft. Then you get using Command Division. To me, this is really based around. This is really aimed at the GMs. Although there are some aspects of this that obviously would be appropriate for players. And then there's some command personnel that you might encounter in your travels. So we're going to look at each section fairly quickly and flick through and have a quick glance at what they do. So just to give you a look and a flavour of the book. Again, you've got, as usual, with Star Trek Adventures, you've got these little captain's log and these little call-out boxes, which add flavour, which add sort of a sense of what's going, just depth to the thing, and really make it quite interesting to read. So then we get into the Command Divisions. This is kind of one of the chunky bits of the book, and it tells you quite a lot about how Command Division works. It's well written, it's clear, and it really kind of gives you that sort of sense of the bigger organism that is Starfleet and how it works together. So it's really nice actually, and it's quite interesting because you've got bits about flag officers throughout history. Flag officers in 2371, which is the default time period for the game, and you've got little bits about how fleet operations work, what different sections in Starfleet do, the judiciary, how that works, could be useful. So what they might, like one of the tiny things, the bullet points there, what they might convene over, which is really interesting. There's a bit about JAG, which is quite cool. Really interesting bit about this, and this is good for players, I think, to give them particularly the captains, it's a really interesting wee bit. It's the Prime Directive. I find this really, really useful to read and really interesting to read. So it goes through what the Prime Directive actually is, what it's not, and how it's applied, and goes through examples actually of in Starfleet history. Then it also goes into some things like the exceptions to it. I don't know if you can see that because of the light. Temporal and violations. And I actually found in these 4 pages a lot as a GM, but I can see as a player, particularly for your captain, this is going to be really useful. Because in some ways, this is one of the functions of the captain, is there the link between the crew and the wider Starfleet organisation. On at the core, the Prime Directive is essential. So I find that really, really interesting. I thought that was a really useful 4 pages in terms of depth and adding depth to characters. Then we've got how Command Division works, which is how what the story is like if you are going through Command Division, what you would expect to, what's happened to you, what have you experienced in Starfleet. So if you're going through the training, what it's like to be command or con, and then we get into the bit about starship operations and command officers. Now again, really interesting, and I find this again quite nice. So you've got things like, for roleplay, that some of these are awesome. So you get general orders, how they work. You can the difference between general orders, standing orders, regulations, and that was really interesting because you find yourself going, okay, that can be quite useful. We could probably use that. So different, what happens at different points. The idea then of the different alert statuses comes in and what they specifically mean. So the difference between cruise mode, yellow alert, red alert, intruder alert, medical alert. What happens between a yellow alert and a red alert? There's a bit then about ship diagnostics, and this comes into your alerts. So what do the diagnostics do? What do they, what are the different levels of ship diagnostics? What are they for? How do they actually work? And all of this actually adds richness and depth to your world. And as a GM, if you want to, you can really introduce these. So you can really push this. And if you've got, you might be a really good GM, but you might not have an awful lot of Star Trek experience. This is going to be really useful to you. On the other hand, you might be a player who wants to dig deeper into this deep, rich universe, which is unusual in that it's got such a passion. I was going to say obsessive, but Star Trek, people who are into Star Trek, Trekkies, Trekkers, whatever you want to call them, we are very into it. We love the world, and it's a rich, deep world. We're passionate about it, and actually, it matters that it's right. So in this context, it really helps you to understand a bit about it, not to be intimidated by it. It's actually kind of quite cool, and unlike a lot of role playing, there's such a backlog of richness here just to explore, which is awesome. Then you've also got things about what senior staff are and do, which is quite nice, and how the chain of command works. I found that really quite nice as well. But yeah, I'm discovering I'm a bit of a rules junkie, and I actually find it quite cool, the whole idea of seeing how the Starship itself operates. I find that quite fascinating. The bit then that comes in that's quite I find useful actually, and adds some options, is the command division characters. So there's a bit about how they, what is going on. You've got a bit about things like flag ranks and how they work, and what they do. So what do your flag? What's the difference between a rear admiral and a vice admiral? I didn't know. And then you've got things like missions that they could go on, which is quite nice, and how to play an admiralty campaign. Then we've got this kind of thing about 2 ranks between, and a bit about those ranks, which is nice. Then you've got a bit about the characters and how you could play them if you chose to play this. It's again adding breadth and depth to the universe and the game itself. You've got a bit about how squadrons work and squadron points. You've got what command would look like in play. What command looks like in play. So if you've got a command score of 1 or 2, or 1, sorry, what does that mean? If you've got, this is looking at your character sheet, if you get a command score of 2 or 3, what does that look like? If you get a command score of 4 or 5, what does that look like? And actually that's really nice. And then a bit about what other disciplines might fit well with that command. So what other things would fit and look really good in this situation? So you've got, can you be a command and security? Well, that's a bit like James Kirk. And what was really interesting was whenever you've got this little bit about hints and tips on how to create a good command character and what kind of options might be really helpful. Quite nice. Then you've got really interesting bit about focuses. So the kind of focuses that would fit a command character, which I thought was quite interesting, and how those might work out. So for instance, philosophy just there, looking at what is, and then how that might work out in social conflicts in particular. So that was really interesting. Thought that was cool. For a player building a character, this is going to add richness and depth again, but also make you think, oh, okay, now I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I'll have that focus because that'll give me some options. Then we've got some really interesting little command talents that are added. So things like bargain, which can be used during social conflict. You can re-roll. Whenever you're negotiating an offer with someone during social conflict, you may re-roll a d20 on your next persuade task to convince the person. If the social conflict involves an extended task, you may gain progression 1 benefit when you roll your challenge dice. Then you've got call out targets, which is quite a nice one, very specific, which basically can help. You've got call to action, which could be useful. Cold reading could be useful. You got a whole host of them. Like, the thing that stood out here was obviously these are command things. So these are going to be things that are going to relate to organising your crew or doing the kind of diplomatic negotiation-y style stuff, social conflicts. Because that's where command characters often excel, in those social conflicts. That's what they're built for. So in a lot of respects, and then supporting the crew in the other aspects of the game, which is quite cool. We then get a similar section on the con characters. So how to build one, what the different cons look like, what goes well with con and other disciplines, what the focuses might be for a con character that would fit and would work well, and how they would work. A little bit about how they can work, how you can work that in terms of, in the game, what way they play through. Then you've got your talents, and again, these are quite nice. Now with them, it's obviously all going to be, a lot of it's going to be about flight, but they're quite specific and they're quite clever. And you look at them and you go, okay, I can see how that would add something to a character, as well as just make a better game. Now, going from con, it's a natural leap. Really, that first section, to me, is really, really tailored towards your player. A lot of it. Up to this point, it's very player heavy, player focused, and as a player, it's kind of cool. The next bits are more towards your GM, I think. So you've got a bit about ships. Got to mention a couple of these. The Daedalus class finally comes in, which is awesome. Okay, so that's great. So we've got it's nice to see. We've got the NX class coming in, which is the one that I was really pleased to see, because the NX obviously for Enterprise is kind of cool. So we've got some stuff for Enterprise era. Then we've got a Constitution class refit. We've got a bit about 22nd century starships. It's the ones that Archer flew. We've also got, then we're going into things like the Hermes, Oberth, which is one of my favourite ships, and I don't quite know why, but I really like it. Sydney class, if you just want speed, I believe. Am I right about that, or am I wrong about that? Yep, it's a speed machine. Am I wrong? I might be wrong. I bet I am wrong. No, I always get the Sydney and the Centaur. It's the Centaur that's the really fast one. It's the Centaur is the really quick one. I always get that wrong. Then we've got the Ambassador class, Nebula class, which is, an awesome beast. I just, look at that thing. It's lovely. New Orleans and Olympic. Then we've got Steamrunner, which again is really nice because it's not a huge ship. It's bigger than it looks. It's a scale 4. We get the Norway coming in, which is kind of cool. And Sabre, which is one that I have considered putting into my games because it's only a scale 3. I like the idea of them playing, my players playing in a small. I'm looking at a new campaign, and I quite like the idea of them being in a small ship. So they're a little bit more vulnerable. It's a little bit tougher, a little bit scarier, and a little bit more intimate. We've got a Luna class, and you can see there's quite a lot. Then we get loads about different types of small craft. As a matter of fact, every conceivable type of shuttlecraft I think is in here. We've got Type F, Type G, or is it Type 6? It's hard to tell. We've got it's Type 6. We've got the Worker B. We have Type 7, Type 8, Type 9, Type 10 shuttlecraft, and these are in quite a lot of depth and detail, which is kind of cool. We also have the Federation Attack Fighter and a Type 10 shuttle. There you go, there's loads of shuttles. Now, that, to me, fits GM trying to build together a crew and how they're going and what they're going to be playing like. That's my gut instinct with it. Next little bit, really interesting bit, command division. Command division, using the command division. This I find absolute gold as a GM. Now, up to this point, I would have said this is a really good book for your players. It's more player focused. This bit is awesome because what you've got is you've got different plot components. So red plot components are basically ones that are aimed at the comm. So what are the things that comm are going to, what style, if you want to build a plot component that aims at your comm players and really develops them, what's that going to look like? Then your gold ones are looking at engineering and and combat. Okay, so they tend to be combat heavy. And then your blue plots are science or medical. And you've got a way of rolling different options. So you roll d20 and say you roll 17, you get show the flag, and it tells you some ideas and starting points for that kind of thing. So sometimes the Federation needs to remind a colony of Outline World about why they are members of the Federation. Not military prosperity, diplomatic visit that reminds the world of the benefits of the Federation. Sometimes it's necessary to lay claim to a planet, moon, or spatial feature, and it goes through it. A show the flag component could turn on something even more meaningful if the captain and the NPC antagonists continue to interact over the course of several missions. You could use the storyline as a B or C plot component for several missions, and then so there's some really practical ideas here which I really liked. And I find it so stimulating. I thought, actually, these are some great ideas. I'm going to use these, and it just gets you thinking. And as a fairly new GM, I actually find this really cool. I find this really helpful. Then there's a bit about. Am I wrong? Nope. Then we go to blue plots, which are some other options. So science, there's some options there, and then we go gold plots. And again, these are just rich, really nice bits. Now they're mainly focused on comm, and I'm hoping that they're going to bring in. And then you've got, if you look at red plots, our con department storylines. So once we want to focus on the con player, what kind of where would they fit into different options, and the same thing for them. So it's kind of looking at it and going, okay, if you wanted to do a blue plot, so you wanted to do a medical issue, how would your command player is going to come in with a medical issue as they're going to be dealing with the interactions. A command character can be tested through negotiation skills as well as their ability to keep a frightened mob from rioting or jumping to a wrong conclusion. Right, what does that look like for your con? And the con, what that looks like is maybe evacuation, or they have to use their cross training. So they could be in a position where they're removed from the pilot seat, can be tested in ways that create growth opportunities for the character. So they could be in this position where a plague breaks out and they've got to help. How are they going to help? And they're completely out of their comfort zone and that style of thing, which could be quite cool. So you've got this aspect of you get these different options for types of plot components, and then what it feels like for, or how you can bring in your different characters for it, which I thought was awesome. Social conflicts are mentioned in here, quite really nice detail, and actually, which fits again with your command. It's very focused on command, to be honest. So, in terms of it, what was really interesting, this section, what was really interesting was the telepathy rules and how you can bring in telepathy, because it's a kind of useful thing in Star Trek. It happens quite a bit. What does that look like? And then how you can deal with extended actions and social tools. What do these look like in it? It fleshes out some of the stuff that was in the rule book, and I thought that was really nice, because the social combat rules is one of the nice things about this system, but it kind of just it makes it a wee bit safer, a little bit easier to use. Star bases are mentioned in here, which is quite nice. awards and commendations. I'm going to do a whole video on this because I think this is one of the most awesome things that's come out in this. And for 3 or 4 pages, it has been a really nice flavour that's added. It's only 3 pages, but some great stuff in here. And we're going to do a wee video on that in the not too distant future because actually I thought this is awesome. Fleet engagements, how to run them. And then we get some command personnel, so people that you would encounter in your travels. So Starfleet, obviously things like Commodores and Rear Admirals and stuff like that, and Vice Admirals who might send a message. Then we get a bit of delegates and diplomats from everybody from Sarek to, yes, it is that scary woman, Luxana Troy. And then we've got, you know, some diplomatic attaches and stuff like that. Then we have some Starfleet personnel, people you'd expect, you might see JAGs and academy instructors or different bits and pieces. Supporting characters, we have a few people that, you know, legal counsels, shuttle pilots and stuff like that, and adding more and more options. And then we go to the index and Finn. So that is that's a flick through the book. There's a lot in it for what, 130 odd pages. There's a lot in there. Is it 130? I've probably completely misquoted. No, it's 120 odd. It's a really good book. We're going to go through. I'm going to do my quick review, and yeah, let's see how we go.